If we are talking about the greatest of all time in golf, then it's either Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus. And if you're a golf fan, you have probably spent countless hours thinking about who is better. To help settle this debate once and for all, I'm gone. Break down 8 major differences between Tiger and Jack that will finally answer this question. During his prime, there were only 2 players who won multiple times at majors, Ernie Els and Phil Mickelson. Statistically speaking, Tiger has the edge with 15 majors to Jack's 11. In fact, when Jack began his career, Arnold Palmer was already a household name and one of the faces of the PGA Tour. From 1962 to 1975, he was winning multiple times per year, and he wasn't even close to being done after this point. However, what if the majors were weighted based off of the strength of field that they were playing against at the time? Well, first off, you can see that Tiger dominated from 2000 to 2009. There are no longer pot bunkers, and the rough isn't nearly as rough. Courses have been redesigned to allow for more passing lanes and more birdies. For example, in 1962, Jack won the U.S. Open at Oak Hill Country Club. This course was set up as a true test. If a U.S. Open was held at Oak Hill today, the winner would most likely shoot double digits under par. On top of that, Jack also won 3 Open championships at a time when the Open was significantly different than what we see today. And if you look at the leaderboard, you can see that nobody shot under par. And honestly, that makes sense because he was just playing some of the best golf that we have ever seen during that stretch. But again, these factors have to be taken into consideration when looking at Jack. S11 majors because he was playing with outdated equipment and on extremely difficult golf courses. However, I am gone. Give the edge to Tiger here because the injuries that he suffered were simply more gruesome. Tiger was on the cover of SI for more times before turning professional, which really goes to show how dominant he was during his amateur career. A lot of people thought that we had seen the last of Tiger after his back injuries. It was great to see that this did not affect his legacy, because there were a ton of people saying that the 2019 Masters didn't count because he had to lead the entire time. And it was really a major comeback. But he was able to make an incredible comeback to win his 15th major at the Masters in 2019. He knew how to play the percentages and how to avoid making mistakes. This led to some criticism over the years because people felt that his style of play was boring and that he did unshoot low numbers often enough. This led to courses that were tighter off the tee and more difficult to attack, which may have helped Jack a little bit. So when you're deciding who is better, keep in mind that they played in very different environments and competed against different styles of golf. And that's mental toughness. Both of these guys had incredible mental games. But Tiger takes the cake here because of the sheer amount of pressure that he had on him from a young age. So what's the real difference here? Well, most of the equipment changes have to do with the ball. As we have seen over the years, when Tiger's putting and chipping weren't on point, he was unable to compete at the highest level. I mean, Tiger was basically a global icon. And anytime you have that much pressure on you, you have to be mentally tough to succeed. Even though these guys competed against each other, they clearly have a lot of respect for one another. But when it comes to Jack, he had rivalries with a few different players too. People had never seen anybody like him before, and they wanted to know more. It is safe to say that Tiger played against arguably the strongest field of all time at the 2000 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. And not only was this a stacked field, but they were also playing in one of the toughest U.S. Opens of all time. What I am trying to say here is that Jack was able to maintain a level of professionalism throughout his career that allowed him to build relationships with his competitors. So there is no way that it was a truly fair test if nobody else could shoot under par. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks for watching. There are so many moments where Tiger could have easily given up, but he kept fighting and found a way to win. On the other hand, Jack's wins were much closer, which is why I believe that he played against slightly weaker fields. But what's interesting is that when you look at the other majors that Tiger won, none of them were really like this. Sure, He had to beat Ernie and Phil at the 2000 PGA, but it was ultimately his tournament to lose. And Tiger has repeatedly praised Jack for his accomplishments and longevity, but he was able to stay focused and block out the distractions so that he could play his best golf when it mattered the most. And Jack is even quoted as saying, "I'd give my 18 in a minute to have one of his." Now, the reason why I bring this up is because sometimes you hear stories about rivalries that these guys have with other players during their careers. An example of this is the 2005 PGA Championship, where he shot a final round of 67 to beat a very talented field that included Phil Mickelson and Steve Elliott. When you look at Jack's life story, there are certainly pressure moments as well. And the way he reacts with today's clubs and the advancements in golf course technology, he could hit the ball farther than anyone else, and he wasn't afraid to take risks. But their styles of play did influence the way the courses were set up for the tournaments that they played in. But what really sticks out here is how Jack was able to stay so consistent over such a long period of time. But I think it is more fair to compare them within their own era and adjust for the differences. Now, it's important to remember that these guys played during completely different eras. He was featured on the Mike Douglas Show at age 7, won the Junior PGA Championship at age 14, and was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at age 16. So the biggest difference between these two is obviously the equipment they were using. Today's technology is so much more advanced than what Jack was playing with back in the day. In fact, Jack said that the biggest upgrade he saw during his career was going from hickory shafts to steel shafts. We can make an entire video on this topic, but to keep it simple, today's balls react much differently than the balata balls from Jack's time. With today's more advanced multi-layer balls, it makes them easier to compress, which means they go further and require less effort to hit. The other part of this is that golf courses today are built very different than they used to be. All of this leads to a lower scoring game and an easier time getting around the golf course. Now, some of the majors had similar setups, but not all of them did. Some people might argue that this actually helps Tiger's case when comparing head-to-head, because Jack was able to win across different types of golf courses and weather conditions. The next category is pressure moment, and I'll give this one to Tiger. When it comes to injuries, both of these guys have had significant time away from the game due to injury. In 2008, Tiger tore his ACL, and in 2017, he had 4 surgeries on his back, which included the removal of a disc. It was an amazing moment for not only himself, but for the entire golf world. Personally, I don't care if he had a 10-shot lead going into the final round. He still had to go out there and execute. Now, even though these guys played in completely different eras, they both had a huge impact on how the courses were set up for the tournaments that they played in. Jack was known for his strategic play and his ability to get the most out of every shot, but it also led to some problems, particularly with his short game. What I'm trying to say here is that they both had strengths and weaknesses, but it was ultimately a response to the new wave of golfers that were coming up behind Tiger. Here's a category that's hard to quantify, but I'm going to give it to Tiger. Like I mentioned earlier, Tiger was a media sensation from the time he was 7 years old, and this only amplified as he got older. In addition to that, just look at his comeback victories. The stat that really sticks out to me here is that Tiger ranked first in strokes gained put in for the week. Now, there is one major category that stands out to me, and that's mutual respect. Jack was one of the first people to congratulate Tiger when he won his first major at the 1997 Masters. It's clear that these guys admire each other. That's the game. And they understand what it takes to be successful in such a difficult sport. For example, Tiger and Phil's rivalry is probably one of the biggest rivalries in sports history. These two went head-to-head in so many major championships, and they pushed each other to become better. These guys were known for trash-talking each other, but they respected each other's game, and they understood what it took to win. You can literally look at this leaderboard and see some of the best names in golf history. 156 players teed off at Pebble Beach, and only 73 of them broke par for the tournament. That's how tough the course was playing. For example, the only player who finished under par at the 1962 US Open was Jack. Everybody else was over par. Or in the 1973 Masters, sure, Jack won by 6 shots. But the second place finisher was a guy named Gary Player, who was playing on a very different level than everybody else. So while it may seem like Jack won more majors, you have to take into account that he was playing against weaker fields. Now, if you want to watch another video comparing Jack and Tiger, check out the video on screen.